of the festival. Some people have, of course, have said, well, in terms of the fringe events, how that is going, and will we? We've been seeing quite a number of fringe events, and of course, there has to be some level of a limit. And some have been asking whether will it come to a point where we may have to sort of cap the fringe events, given that maybe it's quite likely that nearly every community is going to want to have their own jazz production. Maybe not, but certainly I think if well managed and all together, it puts together a really wonderful package to ensure that everybody can get a piece of the pie. Now, that's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll be taking in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Island style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In island style.
We have tiles and insets, pieces and ground. Everything you need, we sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bella Rosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. As well, your WhatsApp number, our WhatsApp number here, it is 724-0008. You can get us on that number. You can call in or message in, again, to 724-0008. And as we mentioned, the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival is now done, I think, for the most part, although I do believe the arts exhibition, I believe, continues up until Tuesday, and that's happening at the Orange Grove Plaza, first floor, featuring artists, St. Lucian artists, Llewellyn Xavier's exhibition of over 700 pieces of art. Very, very interesting display, no doubt. So we do hope that you could still potentially take that in if you're a visitor and you are, of course, still looking to get in some stuff today before you head out. It is certainly something that you may want to catch a glimpse of. Now, the issue of security, of course, and thankfully the festival went off without any apparent major security issues at all, and that certainly is very welcome. But of course, we do know that the Caribbean has been faced with significant challenges with respect to the matter of crime and violent crime in particular. We've seen the issues of guns, illegal firearms getting onto our shores, and they're getting into the hands of individuals who are not using them in any way in terms of protecting themselves, but they're utilizing them to cause harm and injury and loss of life and death for other people. And this is a major unfortunate trend which we have been seeing here in St. Lucia with these very elevated homicide rates. Can't really quote the definitive figure, but one can pretty easily, based on what we've been seeing in terms of the numbers and the reporting, quite likely 9 out of 10 of these homicides are in some form or fashion using a firearm, and quite often an illegal firearm. And we, of course, have been speaking about this in the Caribbean for quite some time, but it has become more and more acute, more apparent that these firearms are getting into the country in greater quantity, as well as the ammunition that is to be used within them. Now, that has certainly raised questions as to who's bringing them in, how are they actually coming in, and the suggestion is that Caribbean nationals in the United States are aiding this illegal gun trade. Now, we have seen some cases over the years of St. Lucians, for instance, being charged with that exact offense in the United States of America, being involved in some form or fashion in terms of the trafficking of firearms. And it would appear that in some instances, these are coming in, quote unquote, through the front door. They're coming in through containerized cargo. They're being sent concealed in whatever they can manage to conceal it in. And it certainly is a very active act which is ongoing. Now, that actually has become the subject of a story by an outfit out of the Cayman Islands, Cayman Compass. And just wanted to share that story, which is also shared by the St. Lucia Times on this very matter. United States-based Caribbean nationals with whom criminal networks have links are in many cases facilitating the flow of illegal weapons into the region. The disclosure came from the head of the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, IMPACS, in an interview with Cayman Compass. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones also told the publication that Caribbean cartels are using music promoters and performers as a front for organized crime. He explained that under the guise of performing, a gang lieutenant might, quote, make all the connections as to when are we going to move, what we are gonna move, or in some cases, who are we going to hit. In addition, Jones stated that regional gangs are also setting up franchises in smaller islands, bringing new levels of violence to communities previously unexposed to that degree of gun crime. According to the Cayman Compass, he predicted new levels of coordination and cooperation would be necessary to properly investigate and dismantle gangs operating in multiple jurisdictions and on the high seas. The IMPACS officials' remarks came amid an alarming spike in violent crime in several Caribbean countries. Late last month, St. Lucia's Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre asserted that the incidence of crime and violence in the Caribbean presents a public health crisis, surpassed only for the time being by the COVID-19 pandemic. Pierre, responsible for national security, delivered the keynote address at the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARFA's 68th Annual Health Research Conference. He told the conference in St. Lucia that failure is not an option in combating the crime menace. In this regard, Pierre advocated a whole-of-government and whole-of-society approach to crime prevention and control. He also urged real-time data on trends and dynamics of violent crime in various hotspots and school interventions. And that story, as I mentioned, coming originally through the Cayman Compass, but carried as well by the St. Lucia Times. Now, that is certainly something that is going to take a all-of-Caribbean approach towards dealing with it. Many times we've thought, okay, this issue of violent crimes, that's something that's going on over in Jamaica, and it's really bad over in Trinidad and Tobago. and we compartmentalized these issues, not realizing that our borders are very porous, that our people are moving more, that we're talking about and have been speaking about Caribbean integration for quite some time. And guess what? It's not only governments that are looking to integrate, and people are unfortunately integrating on a lot of different levels, and they're doing so as well, even within the diaspora. And so this continuing trend is certainly one we've got to be very mindful of, especially given what we're seeing as the way these things are passing now, as mentioned there, through music. And he mentioned music promoters, but also through the music itself. We've seen the rise of Trinidad music, for instance. And for a lot of people, of course, it's got a very catchy beat and all of that. But it also appears that there are elements who are utilizing this as well, sometimes as a clarion call for gang violence and gang-on-gang violence. And we've seen this as becoming, certainly right here in St. Lucia, over the past couple of months, we've been seeing a number of these incidents involving school-age children, children in schools engaging in violence against other children in school. And apparently, and of course, hearing about the use of these numeric gang titles that are given, the 6 and the 7, and quite often these things they sound as meaningless to potentially to us, but to some of them who are seemingly very much attuned to the messaging that is being passed on through music, identifying with these new markers. And that sometimes can be very problematic. It's also a means by which individuals are even recruiting gangs. And so, of course, in like manner, whereas we see you've got lots of competition in the space of telecommunications to get your subscriptions through them, and everything is competitive. Well, guess what? Gangs are being competitive too, and they're also branding. They're also looking for ways to attract members and to get people onto their side, so to speak. And that is something that we've got to be very mindful of in terms of our education system, our young people who are being exposed to these conduits through which individuals are trying to get them on board with their own activities. So it is certainly something that we have to have a very serious discourse on, but also an action plan as to how we educate young people about the reality that there are lots of wolves out there who are in fact trying to attract them into activities that are going to end up causing them potentially their lives. And so that issue, of course, is a really important one at the level of the school, at the level of the classroom, at the level of the family unit as well, in terms of this issue of gang recruitment. But we're going to have to put a pause on that conversation because we're actually due to take in our weather report at this time, thanks to the St. Lucia Met Services.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on the 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from the east near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. The weather affected partly cloudy with a few brief showers. forecast for Los Angeles, partly cloudy with brief, widely scattered showers. And the weather summary, the Atlantic high pressure system will maintain light and moderate easterly winds across the eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Despite brief showers over parts of the Los Angeles during the next 24 hours, generally dry and stable conditions will prevail over the region for the forecast period. And this was a weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talemba.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and thin sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need to sort the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality price, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Now, of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number, 724-0008. You can call in or you can message in to that number. And, of course, we have been discussing, well, a little bit of the St. Lucia Jazz and Arts Festival, but as well the matter of crime and gangs. And although it's been a quiet weekend, perhaps I'm not sure if it was jazz that has caused it to be so calm, but we haven't heard of any significant issues in that regard. But certainly in and around the Caribbean, it is still a major issue, and it is still front and center for a number of governments in terms of how to deal with the matter of the rising issue of gang-related violence as well as gun violence here in the Caribbean. Over in the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, and the Leeward Islands, also a member of the Eastern Caribbean, OECS, in fact, the home for the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. That government has also taken some steps at strengthening their firearms legislation in terms of stiffer penalties in one instance, as well as changing the ability for the system itself to tackle and process offenses involving firearms. Now, there have been increased penalties over there for high-level firearm offenses, and that involves the importation of or possession of automatic weapons. And we've seen that becoming also something that is more evident right here in St. Lucia, that it's not just about just getting more firearms, but also the capacity of these firearms is another very, very concerning trend as well. And a lot of automatic rifles seem to be now in the hands of criminal elements. Now, that's a major, major concern, because you can well appreciate in some countries, number one, as far as I am aware, you really, if you wanted to get a legal firearm, you would not be able to get yourself an automatic rifle. That would just not happen. And so what we're seeing are certainly weapons that are almost instantly would have to be illegal within our current system, and that's what we're seeing coming out more and more. But in the case of St. Kitts and Nevis, they have taken the decision to shift the maximum time for imprisonment for persons possessing or importing those firearms, these automatic weapons, from 15 years to now 40 years. They've also raised the fine, and the fines have now gone up to $500,000, $500,000 Eastern Caribbean dollars, for importation of or possession of automatic weapons. And one can certainly see why this is important. You know, one automatic weapon could cause tremendous havoc and mayhem if somehow placed in the hands of an individual who really has the intent to kill, and can end up causing the loss of lives of many individuals by having this one weapon, whether it in fact is used or not. But the fact that you are aiding and abetting or bringing in this weapon or having it in your possession automatically suggests that you are clearly at a point where you are intending to or are supporting or are promoting effectively killing a lot of people. And so this fine, I think, is certainly well in order. Some may even say may not even be enough when you consider that when somebody's life is lost, or even multiple people's life, just one life alone, and the economic impact of that loss of one life can be tremendous. And so certainly having those kind of weapons, they're not even just red flags. They're like, it's a complete red alert, because those should be weapons that are only in the possession of the police or we don't really have a military here in St. Lucia or a defense force, but those are the weapons that should be in the possession of those disciplined forces, not in the hands of an ordinary citizen, at least certainly as has been the norm right here in the St. Lucia and in most jurisdictions around the world. They would not be allowed. They've also increased the maximum imprisonment for other firearm offenses from 15 years to 30 years. As well, of course, there are fines for normal firearms. So your handguns, for instance, the fine there has been raised to $250,000. They've also allowed for the Minister for Home Affairs to be able to establish firearms amnesties. And that is, of course, also subject to parliamentary negative resolution. So the minister responsible for security can, in fact, take on or bring forward firearms amnesties for a decided period, approved, subject to the approval of cabinet. They've also decided to make some changes with respect to court proceedings, and you don't have to go to the High Court anymore for most non-automatic weapon offenses. That, in fact, can proceed at the level of the Magistrates Court with a maximum firearm sentence of 15 years with a fine of $100,000 in that instance. And those are some of the changes being brought forward by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's go to the phone lines just to take in a call at this time. And good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. What's up?
Very good, thanks, caller. How are you doing?
Not bad. Long time.
Yes, you sound very faint, though. Can you just speak up just a little bit, please?
Right?
Okay, yes, we're hearing you.
Okay. I was just wondering if you would think of St. Kitts as a small enough country that it could be properly managed based on reality, like based on, you just decide to get rid of all crime, like whatever you learn, all right, that those harsh penalties would be absolutely necessary. This is the only way out, because I'm still not seeing it a way out. Because obviously what we're aiming for is zero crime. Because in
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part you said. It's obviously?
What we were aiming for is zero crime, more or less.
Ah, okay. Yes.
Now I believe that on other principles too that might be missing, like when it comes to the climate and different things, how everybody would adapt and be a meaningful part of society. And even those where you'd be successful enough where economically, you could get everybody. And literally, no tolerance to crime. I mean, for instance, in St. Lucia, in my opinion, if everybody is benefiting from something, then you could suffer for threatening somebody or simple crime. I even noticed it in China. Simple crime where your money would be deducted because you probably get an allowance as a child and what have you, you know what I'm saying? And then on the whole ideas that you could try, while you set up everything there, ideas that you could try to like like the personally, like, say for land, for example, right? If you don't have any rights for land, you literally, the police don't listen to you, you should have documents, like, and that's causing a lot of problems. So while other things are happening and people are frustrated and crime is on the rise, even now with less murders, right, say for this week, you may find that other crimes are rising, because I'm sure there's something I don't want to talk about. The state of the police stations, from the mouth of the officers themselves. Which I mean, that's a shame. We shouldn't talk about that. We should probably discuss more about reality, because we have the finance, but we probably don't have the ideas, and that's what is wrong all the time. And especially if you're going to tackle the complex nature of life all around the globe, we might as well just do a simple exercise on it.
A simple exercise, you said?
Yeah, because I mean, we are Russians, and I'm sure we can adapt or find the right person with the kind of ideas, because I think the people being employed, we seem to know very little about our consciousness, or the consciousness, or our lack of it. And what, you don't have to wait for everybody to have a degree, you get what I'm saying? But then again, you have people with some, real attitude that might be able to describe solutions, and then we probably find a way to discuss it if we are at the top discussing things, and not just, continuing with, outside things that I say, because there's so many things we can talk about. We can even get good examples outside that we can implement, but leave that alone. We have to do our own original stuff that must work. And I figure if St. Kitts are smaller than us, they should be able to do it. So I wouldn't excuse them for putting this kind of,
Well, I mean, there have been attempts at looking at the issue of penalties here in St. Lucia as well. I think maybe back in 2022 or thereabouts, there was an amendment to the firearms legislation as well, or the criminal code regarding that. Firearms legislation for sure, I think. I'm not too sure.
What I'm suggesting is that the point is future than that in St. Kitts, not cutting short.
Well, I'm not sure that you could say that it's only okay for St. Kitts, but it might very well be that because we can learn from pretty much everybody. St. Kitts is facing a very similar kind of situation as with St. Lucia, as with a lot of various parts of the Caribbean. And so I was just raising the point that and looking at what they are in fact are trying to introduce over there. Now, what would be interesting is to see the impact. Whether there will be an impact in terms of how they're processing matters, how quickly, what kind of steps they're taking. The issue of the amnesty, for instance, is one which has been mentioned. I think there have been amnesties here in the past, and they are sort of putting provisions in place as well for doing that over in St. Kitts. In fact, one of the things they did over there, and and that was quite controversial under the last administration, I think of Mr. Timothy Harris, was that they actually were almost paying gangs to try to maintain the peace.
Wow.
Yeah. Now that is very controversial. I can, but then some people will tell you that you've got to try to see if there were economic issues within some of these communities.
Yeah,
how do you deal with that now? And it's worrying though when you get to the point where the individuals who have the most influence happen to also be the gang leaders. Now, so that is where governments have to be very careful to see how then they can influence positive change in communities. I think paying for peace is a dangerous thing.
You see, again, what I was saying, whatever they implement, that may not be the cure, and most likely it is not, because you even find, well, other people may come with different ideas. You're not in politics forever, but what you're trying to do is a permanent thing. So when it comes to what's happening in an area where you think you have the force, you have the finance, first of all, you have the authority. Just like I was saying, a while ago, I was going to that, because how you can make sure that those families, right? Those families, people who have enough land in the family that to go about, give everybody their peace. Because nowadays, if you make a report and once the person doesn't have a land document, the police is not even interested, and especially family matters. So these are areas you could probably, because that is where the crime resides. Even if and other things, minor things are happening, and you can the police has admittedly become kind of, and that is sad. That's what I want to talk about.
Well, I think I understand what you're trying to say, caller, that sometimes we're not really looking at some of the underlying issues as to why some of these crimes are being committed. And you're pointing out that one of them is, in fact, dealing with the issue of land.
Right.
Okay. I think I follow what you're saying now. And I take that point that it is... That tends to cause lots of different disputes.
Not necessarily, excuse me, but I mean, you need to have a sense that, whatever you're going to do, your contribution will, saying, especially if you're doing something, you want to contribute to the community. But then you find you're tight because you don't have the authority and the government doesn't back you up. You understand what I'm saying? If something is going wrong, but they have the authority to make everything, as I was always saying, address the real issues. Now you have people there who probably actually can doing these issues, but the society as it goes, right? But I'm saying when you miss something, the story behind it is also very important, and there are lessons that we can learn. But too many people just going along with it. If one example, because for instance, if you have that matter in court, or the government is interested, or the opposition wants to do something, or somebody wants to do something, that should be seen as an effort to stop crime and then to be taken very seriously, because these are not fringe issues, what I'm saying. When it comes to things, the financial part of it is very important. And all of this come together in probably what we probably want to call change, Yeah, but it's meaningful change, man. And at least, I know we have the potential, and I think the more, people do things that encourage this kind of, fringe, crime, to just take into this thing and
all right,
just when you finish. So I would like that to just be replaced by some more kind of responsible journalism, like asking the real questions, doing the real things. And
all right, thanks for your contribution, caller. Have a good one. And thanks for that call. Of course, the number to call in is 4523046. Now, just very quickly, in terms of some of the other actions that are being made under this change to the Firearms Act over in St. Kitts and Nevis. Also, the Director of Public Prosecution is being given more leeway in terms of he or she deciding where to proceed with the matter, whether he wants to bring it to the magistrate's court for some of these matters, or if he wants to go to the High Court for gang-related matters. They also amended firearms offenses in terms of issues like covering importation, export, transshipment, manufacturing or sale or purchase. And we're saying so, of course, but you are seeing on island too, we've seen where there have been changes to devices that they've added on pieces, and there is a certain level of manufacture or modification that is going on to some firearms, even on island. The purchase, acquisition, sale of or transfer, the possession of it, and the use of firearms or imitation firearms for the purpose of committing another crime. And of course, we've seen that as well sometimes where they don't actually have a real firearm. It may look a little bit more than a water gun, but it still sometimes is used in a criminal act, a burglary, a robbery, or something of the sort. And that, although they may not have an actual firearm, the intent was to give the impression that they did in fact have a firearm. So that is also being covered under that amendment to the legislation over in St. Kitts. So of course, right here, there have been some changes as well, as I mentioned. And it's a work in progress. We have to be looking and seeing how effective are the changes. Are there certain aspects that should be taken up? Of course, in the case of St. Kitts, they've also made some modifications as to the powers of the DPP and ensuring that certain things can be fast-tracked through the magistrate's court without having to go to the High Court for a decision on them, for a judgment. And so maybe there are certain aspects of that could very well be also taken on board. But we're going to have to continue that conversation perhaps tomorrow for another program of the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. That's because we're all out of time. We do hope that you can join us again, God willing, for another program. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.